Bodo. And now the news in detail. Hundreds of freed Palestinian prisoners and detainees have been welcomed with tears and screams of joy as they were released by Israel to be reunited with their families in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. BeeTv News Evening Izibili reports.
The release involved about 250 prisoners who had been convicted of crimes including murder and deadly attack against Israelis, and about 1,700 detainees from Gaza who had been held by Israel without charge, as prisoners exited a Red Cross bus by the Israel military. In Gaza, families gathered at Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis in the hope of being reunited with their loved ones. A field hospital adjacent to the main hospital building was set up to receive them. Multiple medics and family members said the prisoners who were released in Ramallah had faced beatings in recent days prior to their release. Journalists could not verify claims of mistreatment in Israeli prison, but Israel's top court said last month that Palestinian prisoners
finally over. Israel is releasing 250 Palestinian prisoners and more than 1,700 Palestinians detained during the 2-year military operations in Gaza in exchange for the last 20 living Israeli hostages held by Hamas. The exchange, the first phase of Trump's peace plan, is also due to include the return of the bodies of 28 dead Israeli hostages. In Egypt, Trump was all smiles in the company of Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and more than 20 other leaders from around the world. Trump said everybody is happy, adding that he had done big.
This took 3,000 years to get to this point. Can you believe it? And it's going to hold up, too. It's going to hold up.
Among the many world leaders at the summit who stood for a photo opportunity with Trump was Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, who less than a week ago was blocked by the U.S. from attending the UN General Assembly in New York. Although the first phase of the ceasefire agreement has been enacted, there is a lingering question over what role the peace agreements were underway. During his
and €31,800 in recent allowances, a near double increase from the previous allowance of 400 million rupiah, said the country's deputy as speaker. The reports.
The recess allowance is meant to support lawmakers carrying out their official duties like visiting constituents when parliament is not in session. The protests earlier in August were triggered primarily by a $3,000 monthly housing allowance given to lawmakers, nearly 10 times the minimum wage in Jakarta. These were later cut in a bid to quell anger. August protests began after thousands demonstrated against the housing allowances for MPS, but they soon spilled into a wider protest over corruption and economic inequality in Southeast Asia's largest economy. And now, news of the latest recess allowance hike, which kicked in on October 3rd, has renewed controversy around this. Indonesia lawmakers take around 5 recesses a year, during which they visit their electoral districts and gather feedback from residents. The High Ahmad told reporters on Saturday. He told Reuters that the previous allowance did not take into account the rise in food and transport prices. That's Number of lawmakers had received an extra 54 million rupees in a recess allowance. Authorities later said this was due to human error and that the money had been clawed back. Temitope Oluwafemi reporting for BeeTv News.
A Kenyan police officer stationed at the State House Gate in Nairobi has died after being shot with an arrow by a man armed with a bow, authorities confirmed. Police say the attacker, who had disguised himself as a homeless, hit him in the ribs. The officer was rushed to the hospital but later died while receiving treatment. The suspect was swiftly apprehended and is currently in custody, with local media reporting is expected to appear in court. The shocking attack has raised serious concerns over security lapses at one of Kenya's most heavily guarded sites, prompting a full investigation into how the assailant got so close to the presidential residence. Police spokesperson Muchiri Nayaga condemned the attack, praising officers for their quick response and sending condolences to the of faith in Nigeria. Dr. Okpai dedicated over 6 decades of his life to evangelism, the dynamic teaching of God's work, and prophetic demonstrations of divine power. Describing Dr. Okpai as one of God's generals, the president praised him as a firebrand preacher and passionate crusader of the faith, whose life mission was to unite the Christian community, spread peace, and uplift the underprivileged. President Tinubu also commended Dr. Okpai's enduring humanitarian legacy, calling him a man who built both people and bridges across faiths and cultures. He extended his heartfelt condolences to his widow, Pastor Philomena Okpai, their children, and the wider Christian community, praying for Dr. Okpai's eternal rest. Governor Alex Oti of Abia State also paid tribute, describing Dr. Umar Okpai as one of the state's most celebrated religious ambassadors, reflecting on their close appointment and promotions fall within the statutory responsibilities of university governing councils and should be handled at the institutional level in accordance with existing laws. Additionally, the ministers reminded ASU that the no work, no pay principle remains a valid and enforceable provision under Nigeria. While the government remains committed to peaceful dialogue, it will not hesitate to enforce existing laws to safeguard the integrity of the education system and uphold accountability, the statement warned. The minister further assured Nigerians that the federal government remains open to continued engagement with ASU and other stakeholders, not revitalizing the university system, enhancing staff welfare, and maintaining academic stability. The government has shown sincerity and commitment through both dialogue and policy action. We believe that with continued constructive engagement, all legislative concerns can be resolved without shutting down our campuses. Our students must remain in school, the statement added. The future of our children and the stability of our universities must take precedence over disputes. The federal government is ready to work with ASU to consolidate the gains made in staff welfare, infrastructure development, and institutional reform, the ministers concluded. The Department of State Services in Delta State has intercepted a cache of sophisticated weapons in Asaba, the state capital. The operation, carried out on October 12, 2025 within the Asaba metropolis, resulted in the arrest of a notorious arms dealer identified as Stephanie Sabo Atoshi, along with his accomplice, a 40-year-old secondary school teacher from Taraba State. The report.
The Department of State Services (DSS) in Delta State has intercepted a cache of sophisticated weapons in Asaba, the state capital. The operation, carried out on October 12, 2025 within the Asaba metropolis, led to the arrest of a notorious arms dealer identified as Stephen Sabo Atoshi and his accomplice, a 40-year-old secondary school teacher from Taraba State. While briefing Governor Sheriff Oboriwori on Monday in Asaba, the Deputy Director of Operations of the Delta State DSS Command, Mr. Anthony Efemeje, revealed that the suspects were part of a transaction transactional network trafficking small arms and light weapons from Seba in southern Libya to the Asaba-Onitsha Expressway. In addition, the DSS discovered 497 cartons of counterfeit drugs intended for distribution within the state. In response to the development, Governor Oboriwori ordered a full-scale crackdown on criminal networks following seizures. He described the operation as a major breakthrough in Delta State's ongoing effort to combat insecurity and commended the DSS for their professionalism and effective intelligence gathering. This seizure is a testament to the strength of our security architecture and our resolve to keep Delta State arrested and prosecuted. He reiterated Delta State's status as a peaceful and investor-friendly environment and vowed to resist any attempt to destabilize it. He concluded by reaffirming his administration's commitment to peace, unity, and the rule of law, emphasizing that no individual or group would be allowed to take the law into their own hands. Zainab Mohammed reporting for BeeTv News.
Newly appointed technical manager of Bende Insurance FC Kennedy Boboye has arrived in Benin City in readiness.
Benin City coach Kennedy Boboye was warmly received by the executive chairman, Edo State Sports Commission, Honorable Amadi Desmond Nabulele, and top officials of the commission, as well as the general manager of the club, Charles Eyimekme. He was immediately taken on a guided tour of facilities at the iconic Samuel Gumida Stadium on Monday by the chairman of the Edo State Sports Commission, Honorable Amadi Desmond Nabulele, and insurance top officials. He was conducted around key facilities, including rainbow, training pitches, dressing rooms, media center, gym, and the recovery center. The tour marks the beginning of a new chapter for the experienced gaffer, as he has already sealed a
but unconfirmed reports earlier suggested that he had fled the country on a French military aircraft. It follows a fortnight of nationwide protests, mainly led by young demonstrators aimed at kicking him out of power. Rajolina's failed attempt to placate the young protesters, dubbed Gen Z Mada, saw the president sack his entire government and make other concessions to no avail. He has not been seen since on Wednesday, and at the weekend, Rajolina's office said an attempt was on
communities with registration through the Corporate Affairs Commission. The fund is held in banks with a minimum BBB credit rating and is used to finance infrastructure, education, healthcare, and environmental protection projects. Oversight is managed through a digital platform, Host Comply, which tracks project implementation and fund disbursement in real time. The Nigerian exchange market capitalization increased to 93.8 trillion naira, reflecting a gain of 465 billion naira. The all-share index rose to 147,717,000.21 points, supported by strong investor demand in insurance and industrial sectors. Trading activity recorded 624.58 million shares, valued at 13.47 billion.